Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. Hope your podcast dreams are coming true. And I hope you're getting the recognition you deserve as a podcaster. You work hard. I know you work hard for your show. And any type of recognition is great. I want to talk about podcast awards here on the How to Podcast series. Just a little word of warning, you're going to hear some bias from Dave. Now, this is my personal bias. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me. That's the beauty of podcasting. We all have an opinion. And I want to put mine in front of you for food for thought, because I'm having people come to me as podcasters in my coaching time with podcasters just like you. And they're like, Dave, should I submit my podcast to this awards ceremony? It looks so fancy. And when we start uncovering the parameters around the award, how much it costs to apply, how much it costs to actually pay for the award, in some cases, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars if you win. What happens if you apply and you lose? Is it worth it? All of this stuff around podcast awards. There's people who this is what they do, is they just chase awards every day for their show. And I'm curious as to why. And yeah, let's just talk about it here on the show. I want to bring some clarity to the whole podcast award world and whether or not it's right for you, whether or not it's right for me, and maybe the impact on podcasting as a whole. Podcast awards. Yes, no. How do you feel? Let's have a conversation. So let's start right from the top. I'm going to put my bias right in front of you. I'm not going to keep it as a surprise at the end of the show. For me, podcast awards are something that I don't chase. I don't chase them. I don't apply. I don't personally, again, don't let me sway you. Personally, I don't see value in them for me and my shows. I am hyper-focused on the one listener for my podcast and building a bridge with them. I find podcast awards to be a distraction from my purpose of reaching one person, reaching you. You pressing play is my podcast award. That's kind of my approach to everything that I do. Now, I do not want to negate your view on podcast awards. You could be very well a podcast award winning podcast listening to this, and I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, what's up with this guy? Okay, I'm telling you my personal opinion, and I'm allowed to have one, and so are you, and we're also allowed to have a different opinion. That's kind of how the world works, and we don't cancel each other out. We don't think ill of the other, and there's room for both. So what I'm going to try to do today is give you 3 advantages to podcast awards and for podcasters, and 3 disadvantages. So no matter what side you're on here, I want you to listen to the other side of the conversation, because I think people who love podcast awards hang around with people who love podcast awards. People who don't find value in podcast awards hang around with other people who agree with them, and podcast awards are a waste of time. So what if we switch roles here and listen to each other's side and come up with the right answer for us in the moment, subject to change, but in the moment, here's where we stand for our show, for your show, for my show. Make the right choice for you, because chasing a podcast award might not lead to where you want to go, or it might be the perfect thing for your podcast. Either way, we're going to talk about it here on the show. I'm glad you're here. And again, we're here in love and respect of each other. There's a lot of room for people to have opinions about this. And if you run a podcast award show, great. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for listening. If you've ever applied to be a podcast award winner, and whether you won or lost, whatever, or if you're like me and you're like, I don't really care about this at all, then there's room for everybody. You're on the show, nobody's going to be talked down to. But my personal bias up front is, for me, my podcast award comes with one download to this episode from you. I've already crossed the stage. I've already had my award. So technically, in Dave's mind, you're listening to an award-winning podcast because my award is you. And you being here is proof that this podcast has value. I don't need anything else. Really. I really don't. And I'm not on that journey. If you are, I admire you. But I want everyone to go into this with your eyes wide open, understanding what this means, what it means to you. More importantly, what does it mean to your audience? And will people treat your show differently with or without being an award-winning podcast? Something to think about. I'm glad you're here. Pursuing a podcast award is a really big decision. And while it offers some prestige, it's important to look beneath the surface of podcast awards as an industry. It's a thing. It's a business. It makes money. It spends money. It's a business. There are some key advantages and disadvantages to consider all around podcast awards and its impact on the podcasting community. With some honest perspective on whether these accolades actually move the needle for your podcast, for your listeners and the podcast community, I want to talk about 3 advantages of pursuing a podcast award. First, visibility and credibility that boosts your show. An award or even a nomination can put your show in front of new listeners. Media sponsors would be interested in this, and people who want to collaborate with you would be interested in this. It opens doors for you to speak and be a guest on podcasts. It does have an advantage. You become more visible because you're on a list with other amazing podcasts. That's a good thing. That's a great thing. It adds an external stamp of quality and approval. People like 5-star ratings. People, when they go into a restaurant, they want a good restaurant with a good rating. People want to stay at a hotel that's got a really high rating. A 1-star rating is probably not a great choice for a hotel or a getaway with your partner. You probably want to go a little bit higher than that. So I get people rank things by how it's perceived and what people think of it. It does shape opinion. Totally understand. Appreciate that. I live it in real life. Awards may allow you to pitch more effectively to maybe higher level A-list guests for your show, to reach out to sponsors and get them to sponsor your podcast. Citing award-winning as a status signal is kind of a validation that your show has value. To some. To some, they don't care about any of that. But to some, it's a state of validation. And I get that. I understand that. Makes sense. Also, it's a recognition boost and it helps your morale. Being acknowledged for your hard work gives you and your team a sense of accomplishment and can be a genuine source of pride for you and for your audience. Your audience is celebrating. They're like, oh my gosh, my favorite podcast won an award. This is great. So it's a boost for your audience as well. This recognition may help with personal motivation for you to keep podcasting. It's something that you can share with your listeners, strengthening their connection and loyalty to your show. It's a great way to boost your morale. That's awesome. And I love that podcast awards do that for people. So if that's what you need, is a good shot in the arm to say, hey, I'm doing great. My show's doing awesome. And my audience is having a great time. And look, we won an award. That's a good perspective. It's a great morale boost. It's nice to be recognized for all of the hard work we put into our show. That's great. It's also great for networking and other opportunities. Award ceremonies and the surrounding buzz around awards can lead to some meaningful connections with other creators to be in an elite group of award-winning podcasts. The opportunities for, leveraging the press, doing a press release talking about your award and that you won, and there's more collaboration opportunities. There's a lot of great advantages to this. Sometimes even the process of applying can help you reflect on and improve on your show simply by throwing your hat in the ring to be a podcast that's nominated for an award. It has something behind those words. It's great for networking and opportunities. Those are advantages. All valid advantages. Here are 3 disadvantages. And this is kind of where Dave lives. Okay, just so you know, again, my bias, I'm waving my flag, really transparent here. This is where Dave is on this whole podcast awards yes or no thing. And here's where you and I might differ, but hear me out. Here's where I kind of sit in this whole debate. 3 disadvantages of pursuing a podcast award. First, questionable listener impact. Podcast award, what's in it for my listener? What's in it for my listener? If this show won an award, what does that mean for you? Because everything I do here is for you. The vast majority of podcast listeners either don't know about podcast awards or don't care who's an award-winning podcast. They just love their favorite podcast. Award or no award. To them, it doesn't matter. They just love your show. Recognition often impresses other podcasters and the industry insiders much more than in your average audience member. Really, they don't care if your show is an award-winning podcast. And for you to rub it in their face every time you come to the mic, welcome to the Dave Podcast, you're the How to Podcast series. It's an award-winning podcast, and I have 35,000 awards. Thank you for listening. My audience is like, I don't give 2 rips if you have an award or not. Let's get to the stuff. I didn't come here to hear about your awards. I came here to hear about the content and to connect with you as the host. So in that, is the award getting in between you and your audience? I think for those that find their intrinsic value of them as a person in whether or not they're an award-winning podcast, that gets in the way between you and your relationship between you and your audience. I see that as a roadblock, as a wall built between you and your audience that you have to climb over and they have to climb over. It's an obstacle that doesn't need to be there, if that's how you treat your awards. Listeners are ultimately drawn by the content, consistency, and the reliability of your show. Listeners are not drawn to your show by how many trophies are on the shelf behind you. They're here because of you. So for me, there's a questionable listener impact to pursuing a podcast award. That's why I don't invest my time and energy in applying to all of the hundreds of different awards for this or that. No. And when I hear people infatuated with this, it turns me off. Because it's all I hear every episode. Oh, by the way, make sure you go vote for me. Vote for me here. Oh, and use multiple emails so you can vote for me many, 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 many times. So if you have 15 different Gmail accounts, go vote for me all 15 times. And I'm like, in that request, if you just pause that for a second and go, who is this request about? Because right now I feel like it's all about you as the host, begging and pleading me as a listener to stop what I'm doing and go invest time to vote for you. For what? What do I get out of you winning an award? Nothing. Very little, if anything. I'll do it for you because I appreciate you, but I'm not investing an exorbitant amount of time signing in, signing out, using all my different Gmail accounts to go pump you up. I just don't see the value in it for me as a listener if you, as a podcaster, win an award. I don't see the correlation there. And for me, it's questionable listener impact to pursue and be infatuated with podcast awards. So that's my bias, okay? Just so you know, that's where I'm coming from. As well, there's a pay-to-play thing that comes in here and a vanity thing that really concerns me around podcast awards. Podcast awards are marketing. It's the equivalent of buying an ad. It's the equivalent of putting money on Facebook or to get on a podcast app and buy a banner ad. It's paying somebody to feature you on their show. It's having somebody pay to come on your show as a guest. These are all advertisements. These are all money-changing hands for content or results. It's a pay-to-play model. Many podcast awards require an application, and with that application, there's an application fee. It's a business, everybody. Yes, it's an award show. Yes, it's recognition, but it's a business. At the end of the day, this business has to cover its cost, and most likely, they're motivated to make money as a podcast and award show, because why would they do it otherwise? Unless it's out of the goodness of their heart and it's completely free to enter, there has to be some underlying reason this podcast awards thing even exists for some reason. There has to be something. And if it's completely pure intention to celebrate independent podcasters, then go for it. But this application fee is a pay-to-play model. I refuse to pay to be considered for an award for my podcast. Remember, my award is reaching one person. You. I've already won. I've already crossed the stage. I am an award-winning podcaster because you're here. Done. Do I need a trophy? Well, no. Because you're my trophy. Thank you for being here. This recognition is just something that I'm struggling with. And this whole pay-to-play thing, it kind of blurs the lines between what's a legitimate honor, like bestowed on you, given to you by people, your peers, your community, your listeners, compared to vanity marketing, risking credibility within podcasting communities. I find that there's this pay-to-play thing bothers me. Some awards have very little transparency as to how they operate and may exist largely just to profit from hopeful creators who want to be acknowledged for their hard work. In that, if that's your motivation for your award ceremony, that you want to make money off of people who don't know better, then that's not cool. And I'm pushing back on that. That's my perspective. That's my bias. It's coming through, I know. But for me, it's a pay-to-play model. And to have an application fee and then also have a trophy fee, come on. Really? So for me, it doesn't work. As well, I see in a bigger picture for podcasting, I see podcast awards as a potential harm within the industry. Let me explain. Before you get angry, let me explain. With low barriers of nominations and questionable judging processes, which we don't really understand, the amount of awards out there can actually dilute the meaning of the recognition behind the award itself. And there's a focus shift happening away from genuine community building and creative risk-taking and acknowledgement for great podcasts being blended in with this whole idea of money-generating business opportunities to fleece many unsuspecting podcasters in the process. An overemphasis on awards could possibly discourage new voices or indie creators if they see the system is inaccessible or rigged or suspect, or as the kids would say, sus. It should be a true creative and community-led value offering to be nominated and win an award. And for me, it shouldn't be something that costs money. That's just my take. And again, I'm not a guy that's out looking to be an award-winning podcaster. It's not my goal. Here are a few things to consider as we kind of make sense of advantages and disadvantages around podcast awards. Does an award-winning podcast make your show better? Does an award-winning podcast title make your show better? Content-wise, no. Awards are an external validation outside of you. They don't inherently improve your content or your skill. You may gain exposure by being an award-winning podcast, but your audience tunes in for you. They tune in for your authenticity. They tune in for your insight. They tune in for what you do for them, not just your accolades. So, does an award-winning podcast make your show better? You have to answer that for yourself. My answer is no, it doesn't. Zero impact. Your answer may differ, and that is completely fine and encouraged. But from my perspective, where I sit, and with my goals for my show, understanding my audience and what my long-term vision is for the How to Podcast series, no, an award-winning podcast title does not make this show better at all, ever. And probably, I believe, at this point, never will. That's my take. And again, please feel free to have a different opinion. By no means is my opinion the correct answer for everybody. And I understand that. And I acknowledge that people do not agree with me. And that is awesome. That's why we have podcasts. How about this one? Is a podcast award simply a vanity award? Are podcast awards simply a vanity play? For many awards, especially those with an entry fee and very little transparency, with judges who pick their favorites because there's like an inner circle. There is an inner circle of podcasting, by the way. It's kind of like those places that do the top 10 podcasts about podcasting, for example. Do you notice that this show is never on those lists? And there are a bunch of dead podcasts that don't even have episodes anymore. But they're generally curated by friends of friends of friends of friends who know a friend of a friend of a friend. And that's how those top 10 lists, top 100 lists work. They're people who know each other from conferences and they're friendly with each other. And that's how these lists get made. I am not in that camp with these people, so the likelihood of any of my shows making those lists, highly unlikely. And I'm fine with that. The fact that this show runs under the radar and people don't even give it much attention within the industry, and people are like, I've never heard of that guy. That's a badge of honor for me, because I can go places that these award-winning shows choose not to go. And I can do some things a little bit more nimble than they can. So, is it a vanity thing? I think so. In some cases, maybe not for everybody. The nominee label is something that really bothers me. Because somebody will put on their website, the How to Podcast series is a podcast award nominated thing. We were nominated for this award. I'm like, well, do you realize that many of the awards ceremonies, you pay your fee to be nominated? So technically, if I just want to throw cash around, I could be nominated on so many podcast awards I'd fill up my website with nominated by this award, nominated by that award. And what was it? Dave filled out an application and put money in there. And now I can put that on my website. And people do that. It doesn't mean anybody picked you. It just means that I applied. And because I applied, I can now say that my podcast is nominated for an award. Meaningless. It's completely meaningless because I just paid for that title. So, yeah. For me, no. I don't like podcast awards for the vanity side of it. And for me, that is a hard out. Another thing to think about. Will a podcast listener be impressed by my award? Rarely. An award might help with the initial social proof around your show, but listeners stick around and refer friends for your value, not your accolades. So for me, a podcast award does not, as Shania Twain say, impress me much. Do podcast awards make podcasting better, or does it cause harm? This answer for me is mixed. Some legitimate industry-respected awards lift up the quality work of podcasters and create network opportunities. 100% agree with this. 100% promote this, support this, encourage this. 100%. If that's your view, I totally agree with you. Some, not all, some legitimate, keyword legitimate, industry-respected awards lift up quality work and podcasters. I agree. Some, however, it's kind of the opposite. Some of these podcast awards are turning recognition into a commodity, something that can be bought and sold. This can cause more harm than good because it's promoting a pay-to-play scheme and diverting focus from being creative to being rewarded and to be popular. It's a popularity contest. Really, it's high school all over again. And if you have enough money, you can be super popular. If you want to sit at the popular table at lunch with all the other popular podcasts, then paying for a seat at the table might be the easiest way to get there. This show is not going to put money on the table to sit with the cool kids, because a lot of those cool kids just paid to be there. And they're really, for me, that's not where I feel at home. Let's wrap up with this. Again, you're hearing my bias. And for those that are like, oh my gosh, there's a different side of Dave. Well, I'm encouraging you to have a stand on an issue so that people will understand you and understand that you are not you're everything to everyone and you really don't have an opinion. And if somebody says something different, you waffle, you change, you move. You're like, oh yeah, I like your point too. And your point's better than my point. So yeah, we can agree. Have a stand, take a stand on something and what you believe in, but also be open to other people's opinions. While I am not for podcast awards that rip people off and hurt the industry, I also encourage people to apply for awards that are true and will help you grow your show. And I like people who have different opinions. I listen to your shows, by the way. I hear how you talk about awards. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't agree with. And that's what makes podcasting better. There are some strategic benefits to awards. There are some public relation benefits. The heart of podcasting is in honest connection, consistent storytelling, and listener value, not purchased rewards and recognition. If you do pursue an award, do it for personal and team pride. And always prioritize the real work of serving your listeners and your community every episode consistently, valuing your listener, If at the end of the day, what you're pursuing does not offer value to the listener, then why are you doing it? If your content doesn't value the listener, why are you doing it? If your guest doesn't value the listener, why are they on your show? If your show is too long or too short and there's no value to your audience, why are you doing it? Right? If you have an award or you don't have an award, if it's not bringing value to your audience, what's your motivation? If you're looking for vanity, you can buy it. You can buy listeners. You can buy all kinds of things to game the system and appear more attractive to others than you would by doing it the long way. I will say it one more time. This is an award-winning podcast, not because I have a trophy, but because I have a listener. And I fear that I could lose a few listeners from this episode, but I'm okay with that because they're not the right people for who I want to grow. I want to grow people who care about people. I want to grow people who are more concerned with the number 1 than the number 10,000. By being more concerned about the 1, you have a starting point. You have a relationship and a connection. So if you don't like these words, I'd love to hear from you. Set me straight. Share your thoughts. Share your rebuttals. I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure there's people who run podcast awards that are like, this is terrible. Then convince me otherwise. But from my perspective, if you're only out there to build your vanity, then for me, that's not a good reason for an award. But if you're an amazing podcaster and people love your show and your audience says, this show deserves attention and recognition, then that's a little different story in a little different context. And that I celebrate. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages to podcast awards. And I want you to just establish what is the most important reward for your show. What's your most important trophy? And go after that. Whatever that is, it's important to you, and that's all that matters. But maybe this conversation helps you go, maybe I'm on the wrong path. And if you have questions, you want to talk it out, you and I can have a virtual coffee and let's chat about it. And see if you or I are on the right path. You never know, you could change my mind. But here, at this moment, on this day, on this episode, for me, my podcast award is you. You're still here. So, I think I won. And thanks to you, the How to Podcast series is not just nominated, it's an award-winning podcast. Thanks to you. Appreciate you. Podcast for the right reasons, and you get great results. Start today. Talk soon. Hey, thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to the end of the podcast. You're here with me. I'm so grateful. I want to put something in front of you. For the person that's listened this far, you're my new best friend. So what I'm trying to do every month is I have a goal, and you can help me with this goal. Very simple. What I'm trying to do is have 5 conversations this month with listeners of the How to Podcast series. You don't have to have a podcast to respond. This can be the first time ever that we're going to have a conversation, but I'm looking to talk to 5 people. Now, you're still here, so you're one of the people that I would love to talk to next. So on my howtopodcast.ca website is a calendar. And I'd love to have you respond on howtopodcast.ca. Just click the calendar link, set up time in my calendar, and in the comments section for the meeting, just put something like listener. That's it. If you have a show, put it in the comments too so I can go listen. But if you don't, I just want to talk to 5 listeners every month from now to the end of the month. So if you're listening to me right now, you're the person I want to talk to. And through howtopodcast.ca, you and I can get together, chat about the show, chat about your journey as a podcaster. Where are you at? What do you need the show to become for you? What's missing? Your feedback. I just want to meet you. And as podcasters, I would encourage you to do something similar to this in your podcast so that you can meet and interact with your audience. So, howtopodcast.ca, I'm looking to talk to 5 people every month, and I would love for you to be one of them. Reach out. It's free. I'm not selling you anything. I just want to talk to you at howtopodcast.ca. Let's get in the calendar and chat. Thanks for listening.